Hello, everyone, and welcome to One in Six Supports Friday group. We are in New Jersey, and we are a group of parents who um, provide support for each other, emotional and practical, and share resources. And if you are not familiar with our group, you can check us out at www.oneinsixsupport.org. And that's number one and number six, not spelled out. And if you'd like to reach me to be a part of the group, it's Alma, ALMA, at oneinsixsupport.org. And we're really excited today because we have a speaker who is a mom of a child with a disability herself, and she is the owner of Blue Oak Dispensary, and her name is Danielle Wildstein. And we're so happy that you're here. You are a true ally, and you donated to our gala this year, which we were very grateful for. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Danielle's going to talk about the benefits and the concerns also of cannabis and all the other THC related things. So thank you again, Danielle, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for letting me be here. I'm Danielle Wildstein, 3 children. My husband Eric is here. We live in Scotch Plains. And so I'm here not just as a business owner, talk about what has helped me as a woman and a mom, but also I can empathize and relate, having a son who's 12 who is neurodivergent. We've had, a very long run with him since kindergarten with needs that we've had to meet. I have a daughter who's 10 and a son who's 7, and our son who's 7 also has an IEP. Little bit of a different path than my older son, but some similarities as well. I also do want to say that Eric's sister, my sister-in-law, Jessica Weinberg, will be here next week. She's a special education attorney that has really helped me navigate not just the school system, but the emotions and the mental load.
She actually will not be here next week.
We
were postponing because she has a conflict.
Well, she'll be here at some point. Yes. So I can understand. I'm in your situation as well, to some extent. So, but I'm here really to talk about, my experience, what's helped me, what's helped other women and moms. I started my career a very long time ago in pharmaceuticals. Really, since I was a child, I've been aligned to health and wellness and the medical world. I grew up with a very sick mother. Epilepsy led to rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, lung cancer. She eventually passed, unfortunately, but at a young age, I had to navigate the medical system and health and wellness. And I was the youngest of 3 children, but I was in that position to help her. And so I went to college, studied psychology, got a master's degree in psychology, more organizational psychology, but I really wanted to understand how the mind connected with the body and how others connected with each other. It was just my way of better understanding how I was being raised and how I could help my mother, single mother. And my mother had severe depression from her illnesses. Unfortunately passed young at 66. And I helped her only to a certain extent. I wish I could have done more. Medical cannabis was something that had come up when she was at her lowest point, but it wasn't legalized in New Jersey at that point. And so I didn't have enough courage or outlets or confidants to reach out to doctors or anyone in the healthcare profession in states that were legalized, Colorado, California, to help her. And now I knew after I started researching that I couldn't have cured her necessarily of her epilepsy or of her lung cancer, but I do believe that medical cannabis could have improved her quality of life, even if it wasn't directly related to cancer or to the epilepsy or to the rheumatoid arthritis, but to her mental health and to her sleeping. She was on a large amounts of pharmaceuticals, which that's why I went into pharmaceuticals. I wanted to learn about clinical trials and the development of that and the sales and marketing to doctors. And I chose to leave the pharmaceutical industry just because their business practices of what I saw did not align with what I wanted to be associated with. I still loved what pharmaceuticals did went on my way, had my career supporting high profile, high net worth individuals running their lives, their businesses. But I always knew that I'd come back to have my own business, to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what that looked like. And then one early morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, my husband's sleeping, I'm researching, and I got an email about opening a cannabis franchise in New Jersey. And this is 6, 7 years ago, when New Jersey was medically legal, but was not rec legal for cannabis. And I thought, what do I have to lose? Let me look into it. It aligns with health and wellness. It's plant-based. I've always had my life in the realm of, traditional medicine and doctors and pharmaceuticals, what I need. But I've also, ever since I was a little child with my parents' divorce, been exposed to therapy, and I've always seen therapy as such a positive way to help you heal and look at the world and interact with others. I've also always, considered chiropractic or acupuncture or supplements, whatever it was, but it was my decision to help my whole self. And so I said, how hard could it be? Let me look into it. Ha ha ha. Many years later, took me about 5 years to get going, get licensed by the state of New Jersey. But when I was thinking about what I wanted my store to be, my recreational cannabis dispensary, I wanted to understand what I could feel good about presenting, what aligned with kind of my moral compass, and the ethos for how I could connect with others and how I could help others. And I said to my husband, I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it compliantly, of course, but I'm not going to be like the other dispensaries that I've seen. Not that they do it wrong. I just wanted to do it differently. I'm at a different stage in my life. I'm now, a married woman. I've got children. My body is changing. I'm in my 40s. What do I need to help me in my current lifestyle? And so I created Blue Oak as a safe haven, if you will, as an educational platform, to help anybody that wanted to listen as to what cannabis could be in your life. You could make it help you in whatever facet. I just want to help you understand how it works in your body, the safety around it, the testing, the quality, because there's a lot of stigma around it still, especially for women and mothers for using. And it was interesting. While I was working through the strategy, had a lot of conversations with moms and friends about what do we do to for self-care, right? So whether we go out with our girlfriends, whether we have a cocktail, whether we work out, whether we're in therapy, whether we read books, whatever we do. And I thought, let me understand cannabis better, because my mom friends, we all love going out for happy hour cocktails, right? And enjoying that. It's that social aspect. It helps you relax a little bit. I grew up Italian. My mother, wine was at every meal to help enhance the flavors of food and to, just make you feel a little bit lighter. But for me, I wanted to be more intentional in what cannabis could do for me. I was at a point when we started on this journey and I was applying to the state where things were not great with my older son. He needed a lot of help. And I lost myself in that process. I struggled with anxiety, depression. Maybe I always had underlying anxiety, but it was never anything that really affected my life to the point where I needed an intervention, other than I love therapy and I love talking to, a licensed professional. And so I started looking, even before I got my license, I started using cannabis medicinally and therapeutically for myself, for my anxiety, aches and pains in my bodies. I am an orthopedic mess today, but I was hard on my body growing up. I was into sports. I rode horses. I was a runner. Don't tell me I couldn't do anything. And I was hard on my body. I definitely didn't, wear the braces I needed to, or work out properly, or take the supplements. And so I've worn down my body, and I just never, for me, wanted to just say, oh, you've got to just pop a pill. You got to just be a slave to pharmaceuticals. I knew it was an option. And so I thought, if this could help me with my mental and emotional health, let's start there, right? Because that at least will make me feel lighter. I'm actually going to be a better mother to my son. I'm actually going to have more clarity with how I can talk to the school, how I can talk to doctors, how I can talk to other support people for my son. So I lead Blue Oak as a wellness center, if you will. I'm not a medical dispensary. I don't have medical background. I'm not a doctor, but I've had a lot of training. When I was applying for my license, I sought out every single pharmacist and doctor, MD, DO, physical therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, to help me understand cannabis. And there were plenty of them in the country because a lot of them were involved in getting cannabis legalized medically. So they testified in their state. They testified at the federal level because although we aren't able to do human clinical trials in this country just yet, there's still a lot of data. There's anecdotal data, there's data from other countries. You look at Europe, and you look at South America, and there's a lot of data around the medical benefits. And it has expanded since it was first legalized medically in California. It's not just for cancer or the very sick with Parkinson's and epilepsy. It has definitely helped with neurodivergence and ADHD and autism. And it's also helped with Parkinson's, but it's also helped with irritable bowel disease, Crohn's and colitis. And so I really wanted to be that safe place for anyone that was curious about cannabis or even current users to come in and learn more, less about the product and more about what cannabis can do for you with your current needs, right? Not what you want, not an escape, but to help you, I don't want to say heal, but to help you live a more higher quality life, whatever that looks like for you. And I'm very proud of what Blue Oak has become. We'll be open 2 years. We're right in Bloomfield on Broad Street, tiny little boutique dispensary within a medical arts building, very discreet, leading with education. All of my staff come with medical cannabis knowledge to understand, the endocannabinoid system that we're all born with. Is your body's largest regulatory system. So it helps regulate your nervous system. So it helps with pain and mood, anxiety. It helps with sleep, thermoregulation. And I wanted to learn why that is. Cannabis in the form of the plant and how it's processed naturally aligns with your endocannabinoid system. So what I was finding was so many of our customers were coming in for 3 reasons. They were coming in for help with anxiety or depression, so mental health, pain, and sleep. And I wanted to understand, yes, we know from research and anecdotal information that could help, but why? And I was learning about why so many of our customers, with the help of their healthcare team, could get off of SSRIs, right? Or lighten the use of the SSRIs, right? And help with the side effects by using cannabis. And what I learned is, the neurotransmitters of dopamine and serotonin and GABA, obviously regulated by the brain. Well, there are cannabinoid receptors in your brain to help tell the brain if your body is dysregulated with that. And it can help tell your body, make less, make more, and regulate naturally, versus taking a chemical that you might have side effects with or might have side effects with interactions, and that be the only option, right? And so talked to a lot of psychiatrists, a lot of therapists about that. I did a train the trainer for therapists so that they could start to talk to their patients. And then I asked about pain, how does cannabis help with pain? How is it different from pharmaceuticals? And it was really about, pain perception in one part of your brain, what your brain feels or says, and what your body feels and says. And they're very different, right? Pain perception versus actual pain in your body. And they're different brain receptors, CB1 and CB2. Cannabis covers both of them. So with pharmaceuticals, it's a brain block, right? It helps your brain shut off that you're not perceiving pain, right? It doesn't necessarily do anything to help with where the pain's coming from, which is oftentimes trauma or inflammation, right? High cortisol levels, stress. And what cannabis does is it goes into both the CB1 for the brain's pain perception and the CB2 with helping to go to the source of inflammation. And if you remove inflammation and trauma, your pain will go down, right? And so I was fascinated by that. And so I have a lot of middle-aged customers, a lot of senior customers come in. And what I love is that I can offer them different ways to consume cannabis. It's not just smoking, right? It's edibles, it's topicals, it's tinctures, and talk about the dosing and the ratio. It's not just about THC anymore. It's about the other cannabinoids. You've all heard about CBD, I'm sure. There's other cannabinoids that help cannabis work within your body to achieve the desired results. Um, so that was pain. And then sleep. A lot of people come in and say sleep's disturbed, whether it's perimenopause, menopause, whether it's, inflammation in the body, whether it's the brain is overactive at night. And so, what I've learned in talking with doctors, everybody can sleep, right? There's just barriers to how your body relaxes to the point where your brain can actually slow down and have your body rest, how long you rest, how well you rest. And so what happens is if you remove those barriers that I talked about, reducing anxiety, reducing inflammation, your body can sleep, right? And so it's for how long. And so cannabis can help not just with those two pieces, but also help with helping your body reach more restful state longer. And so I thought this is incredible. Like we should be talking about the science behind cannabis, even though I'm not a medical dispensary. Anybody that sells medicine, which cannabis is in its form, regardless how you use it, there should be that conversation. And it should be an informed decision for anybody that needs it to decide what they take, how much, and when. And once you get that guidance and that awareness, that education from a licensed dispensary, from your healthcare team, which also does include pharmacists, they were pivotal in the medical cannabis world. If I had a medical license way back when, I would have been required by the state to have a pharmacist on staff to talk about how the medicine works in the body, right? And so I was fascinated by all this, rolled it up into my ethos, and that's what we lead with my dispensary. Still have fun with it. You can still feel lighter. You can socialize more. It can be recreational. You can get high if you want to. But knowing how it interacts with your body is pivotal. And then from there, decide. And it's also freeing. You don't need a doctor to tell you what to titrate up, when to titrate down, when to cheat things, when to not. I also, and a key part of education for me, especially when it comes to mental health, is journaling, right? Before you start taking medicine, check in with your body, right? What are you using it for? What are the components that you want to, better? And I tell all of my customers, write down, doesn't have to be in a formal notebook, but write down how you're feeling, time, date, how you're feeling, what your day looked like. How rested were you? How much water do you have? Where your stress levels are, how much sleep you had, are you fully, your appetite, have you eaten 3 meals? Like take note of all that, consume, and then write down the onset of the effects, how you're feeling and the duration. Then come back and talk to us about it. Checking in with your body, I didn't realize would be a challenge, a shift for people because I don't know where we got lost in this, shuffle of not listening to our own bodies and knowing how we feel and feeling more in control and giving that over in some way to a healthcare professional. And I wanted especially women to take that back and moms because of the role conflicts that we have and the demands that we have. So I just said a whole lot, but I just know for me in my journey that cannabis has helped me with anxiety. It has helped me with patience and mental fog, clarity. Perimenopause, it has been a game changer for me. I've done hormone replacement therapy that helped to a certain extent, but I've used CBD forward products, so heavy CBD edibles to help me with my night sweats, with my brain fog, so I can sleep better, and so that I am a better mother all around, a better wife, a better friend, a better sister. And so when I met Alma and Deborah, I was so touched that this existed. I had no idea. I wish this existed in the Scotch Plains community that I live in.
You can.
Because before I was a dispensary owner, I was a mother with a child that was neurodivergent, that I felt that I had nowhere to go to talk to for support. I had my sister-in-law who was wonderful, but I just needed people, moms that I could talk to and not feel guilty about sharing, and wanting those friends that were listening to feel like they needed to fix me or do something. I just needed them to listen. And so the worlds have come together for me. So I, again, thank you for letting me be here and share. And if there's anything I can do to help make your lives a little easier, I want to be able to do that.
I'm sorry, can I, before we continue, thank you so much. That was such great information. Somebody has their computer, uh, the audio on. Can everybody make sure that you're muted because there's some background noise that we're experiencing? Thank you.
So first of all, thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for sharing your story. I definitely think there is a stigma, right? So the more we hear these conversations, I think from an educational perspective, it's so important. But on a personal note, I just wanted to share a couple of things with the group. The first thing is that I've been to Blue Oak. It is a great space. It is very discreet. The people that work there are lovely. They're informed. It's non-judgmental, and it smells. It's just a lovely, lovely space to be in, and I'm just always so happy to go there. So thank you for creating that type of space within the cannabis world, because it does feel safe and embrace it. Okay. The second thing is my mother died at 78 from cancer.
I'm sorry, can everybody hear who's on the Zoom? Can everybody hear? Just put in the chat. I just want to make sure it's audible so that you're a part of it. Yes, okay, good. Okay.
So my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and my mother was the straightest, most conservative woman ever growing up. And marijuana and alcohol was very, very far.
Sorry, can you come closer just because not everybody can hear?
So all these things were foreign to my mother, and she got very sick very, very quickly, and she wasn't able to eat. She lost her appetite. And one of her doctors did recommend something called, I think, Marisol, which was a form of marijuana that was in a pill form. And they gave it to her to take. And believe me, she was at her wit's end. I mean, she was so, so sick that she would turn to anything. And it made a huge difference for her. So it gave her her appetite, and it also gave her just some calmness. So the medicinal piece of it was real for my mom, and it made a huge difference for her during that 6-month period. The other thing is that I myself was on lorazepam for many, many years for anxiety. And I've been working with everybody at Blue Oak, and through gummies and through some of the flower, I am off of those right now. So that is my personal story with this. So thank you again, because it's all in the education, but just from a personal account, it's such an amazing alternative for us in our lives. So I just really wanted to share that piece of it.
Thank you.
Just to chime in.
Can I ask you to just, whoever's going to speak, just come closer. You don't, not to be on camera, but just so people on the chat hear you.
Yeah, just to chime in. I have 2 kids, and one of them is, a baby. So things have been hard. My older one has special needs. At the end of the day, I'm just so exhausted, and I go to Blue Oak a lot. At the end, some days just get really hard because my son is still 4 and he's ripping up the house very often, and then I have to run after this one. So it's just at the end of the day, being able to take a gummy to relax and just be sane. I think I'm a better mom because I'm able to kind of, take a moment for myself. I know that I'm going to feel better. And I'm a better mom to both my kids for this reason. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Patience is really a big one for a lot of us. I mean, there are so many, parenting is hard, but adding on extra issues can make parenting really, really hard, and patience can wane. We don't have enough internal resources. I say this all the time, but we used to have a village, a family, and we no longer do for most people. And it's, the workload falls on the parents. So it it really does help with patience. It kind of takes out the extraneous noise. And it can be very relaxing. And we're going to get into the, the excessive use and talk a little
Right.
bit about that. But for using it appropriately and using it, medicinally and to help with what was just said, to deal with the anxiety, it is truly life-changing.
I'm just curious in this room if people feel comfortable. Has everybody tried cannabis?
The question is, has anybody tried cannabis? And you don't have to say in the chat because if you don't want to, but
Right.
we're asking in the room who has tried it.
Strange.
It was just for recreation.
Oh, that's
I
okay.
tried it like
Yeah.
3 times. It was different effect every single time.
Okay, sorry.
So what I want to say, thank you for sharing, and thank you. This is why I opened my store to have these connections and help people truly. It's a passion project of mine. And for me, self-care, I've had to learn as I've gotten older what self-care looks like. And it takes on many different forms and it can be very private. And cannabis is something that I can do on my own for my own self-care, right? I don't need to share that with anyone. But I also want to say it's about intentional consumption, intentional wellness, and there's always a balance. So I won't go into that right now, but I always talk about the extreme side of cannabis, right? And the overconsumption, the overuse, because at the end of the day, it is a medicine, but it really is about understanding what's best for you, your own personal journey. It does not and should not look like anyone else's. And that is a big distinction between cannabis and pharmaceuticals. A lot of it has to do with your body's makeup. Even though we might all be women, we might even be the same, similar age, similar size, our bodies are made up very differently, the way it metabolizes, how much sleep you've had, how satiated you are, your cortisol levels. Every day can look also different. And that's why with cannabis, once you understand how it works in your body, you are in complete control. Definitely come in and get guided by maybe new products that have different terpenes or in flower or the cannabinoids in edibles, because what we know today about cannabis, I wish we knew many years ago, right? I didn't want to be the type of mother my mother was. She was wonderful, but the yelling, the anger, she didn't take care of herself, right? I just wish that we had that just to make it a little bit more gentler on moms and women, because we suffer so much, and so much of the times we carry so much mental and emotional load that we need a break at the end of the day. My son holds it together all day in school, comes home, and it is a war zone. It is a war zone. Whether he is screaming and cursing and threatening us, to self-hating, punching himself in the face. And I talk to his school and they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. He is a perfect angel. He's so empathetic. He's such a friend. He's an A student in middle school. Okay, because he's holding it together. I'm also holding it together. Not well sometimes, but at the end of the day, how do we allow ourselves no judgment, no stigma? And that is also why, I created Blue Oak.
That's my question. It's so funny. When I heard about this, I didn't think about it for myself, to be honest. I thought about it for my son. And I was wondering if this is I was wondering if this is something that can be given to children. And I do want to add to it, because you mentioned this thing about the cannabinoid supreme, I guess.
The endocannabinoid system.
Yeah, and the regulating of the mind and body. And I did think about it from, it's interesting you shared about your mom. Thank you for sharing about her and the epileptic part. Like, my son has had epileptic seizures and in the past, and I always wonder, like, coming fast forward, how has that impacted his ability to, or lack of ability to regulate. And I would like to learn more about how this could possibly help a child on the spectrum.
Yes.
And if it can be like, and my son is I know everybody's listening, so he's like a minor.
Okay, no problem.
And once you answer that, we have a couple of questions
Sure.
online.
So I'll take you back to the history of cannabis.
we have to run.
Okay, no problem.
I'll
It's good to
you
see you.
soon. Feel
Absolutely.
better.
Thank you so
Good
much.
luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is too important not to be here. So way back when, however many hundreds of years ago, when it was becoming more and more known that cannabis was being used in this country, it was being used by doctors and scientists and others for recreational purposes. It was made illegal politically. I took a cannabis history course. It was made illegal by President Nixon for Black and Mexican Americans to target them. And he did it. He said, I'm going to go after what they enjoy. I'm going to make it, the marijuana makes them bad. I'm going to do it. All the while, scientists and doctors, and it's documented information, had said to him, please don't make it illegal. We're seeing so much good with treating. It's not a safety concern. Made it illegal while, it was still, right. Alcohol was not considered a drug then. Tobacco was not considered a drug then. And so the stigma came from it's bad. Richard Nixon made it illegal. Ronald Reagan, Nancy Reagan, say no to drugs. It's a gateway drug. You're going to do heroin. And yes, I will say the black market of marijuana, anything that is not legalized and not regulated, will take on an underworld of itself and dangers around it. Of course, absolutely. A cannabis, anything you hear about organic or natural plants, you're not going to go eat a mushroom in the woods, right? Like if you don't know what it can do for you, it can be toxic. Cannabis was no different. And so, that unfortunately the stigma and the judgment is what really is continuing to pull people forward. No different than the 20 years ago, the HRT study that came out saying that it caused cancer and there were black box warnings on hormone replacement therapy, right? Now we're hearing that study was done so poorly because they were giving it to women 10 and 20 years into menopause, where giving estrogen is dangerous and can cause cancer, but they didn't disclose that. So it's all about optics. And when I didn't do medical studies, I did psychological studies, undergrad and in grad school, but it's the same thing. It's all about the controls and the variables. So 30 years ago, when California legalized marijuana or cannabis, it was legalized for epilepsy, cancer, HIV, and Parkinson's. It then quickly expanded to autism spectrum and severe ADHD and regulation and irritable bowel. So Crohn's and colitis because of the inflammation that it can help with. So, and yes, children were part of that. There is in the medical cannabis world, children under the strict guidance of a doctor and a medical doctor or a psychiatrist can be given medical marijuana in certain doses for medical conditions. Absolutely.
Epilepsy, I think.
Epilepsy, controlling seizures, Charlotte's Web. I don't know if you've heard about Charlotte's Web, came and hit the market decades ago.
What's it?
It was a strain of THC dominant cannabis to help with regulation of seizures, so the brain. And there's also documentation about cannabis shrinking tumors, brain tumors, tumors in the body. I actually have a friend from college whose husband, through Harvard, he had in Yale, he had a license, a medical cannabis license for manufacturing in Connecticut, where they shrunk tumors in 3 patients, 2 adult and 1 pediatric patient years ago. Unfortunately, that's sort of been overshadowed with the fact that it is not it was a Schedule 1 drug, still is, although it's going to go down to Schedule 3 with the DEA, which just means, if you know anything about the DEA scheduling of drugs, it means it is highly addictive and has no medicinal value. It's up there with heroin and peyote and opium, which is insane that the DEA has that, and the Department of Justice and our federal government, when for 30 years we've been giving cannabis to the most medically fragile patients and they have seen benefit from that, right? So it's that political crossover, unfortunately, that we've seen. But with President Trump's announcement a number of months ago that they are going to reschedule to a Schedule 3, which means it's still a medicine, you still need guidance around it, but it's on the lines of, steroids or Tylenol with codeine, but it does have medicinal benefit and it should be tested in human clinical trials. So more universities, medical schools, institutions are starting to put money forward towards that, because That's the only way that we're going to get the medical community bought in. A lot of doctors need data. They want to see the science. I understand that. And I would never, for me, would never sell anything without a license in New Jersey, because that means I see the certificate of analysis for testing. I know it's regulated. I know what I'm giving with the right guidance, with the right education is not going to be harmful as long as the individual is consuming properly. So yes, to answer your question, yes, it can be.
Just a quick follow-up, what medical practitioner would we seek to kind of help us on that journey
The question
with
is,
our child if
yes.
we wanted it?
Yes.
sorry, you
Yes.
repeated the question.
So what the question is, what type of medical practitioner would you see for medical cannabis for a minor, or maybe even for yourself? Any medical practitioner, because cannabis is more across all specialties in medicine, even primary care doctors. It's just, I think it's 2 paragraphs in medical school right now that doctors get cannabis education on. It's like 2 paragraphs, if that, maybe 1. But there is enough now with doctors that are neurologists or OBGYNs or oncologists or gerontologists, pain management specialists. They are getting schooled in cannabis medicine. So I would say I would start with, your child's neurologist if it's epilepsy. I'm going to caution you that you may get pushback, right? There is not a lot of acceptance widely in the medical community about cannabis because we don't have the perceived data yet, but we do. We do have research. We do have anecdotal data. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to.
Yeah.
But I'd like to ask.
Sure.
Okay, a question online. I need all remaining brain cells.
Mhm.
Does marijuana destroy some?
Yes. Great question. And that's the balanced conversation, right? Oftentimes we hear about children smoking marijuana and their cognition is lowered. There is a reason why cannabis is 21 and older, right? It's, online with alcohol. In my opinion, when you're going to smoke high amounts of THC, it really should be after 25. At 25, your frontal cortex is fully developed, and that is where memory is, and executive functioning skills develop. So it's not that, those 21 to 25 shouldn't smoke marijuana, but there's a lot of misinformation about what happens with children when they smoke marijuana. I will say when you use marijuana or cannabis to escape, right, to detach from reality, which a lot of people do with alcohol or with illegal drugs, that is where the danger comes from. With cannabis, absolutely, you can lose yourself in it. You can feel differently. You can, not feel at all. You can turn your brain off. When you're using to escape, maladaptive behaviors come from that. What I talk about is intentional consumption for what it is that you're trying to help your body with, right? Not escape. Because when you're off the high, those issues and that inability to deal with life or see the world differently or like yourself is still going to be there, right? No differently than pharmaceuticals, right? So and that's why, for me, what I've also learned with myself is you treat with pharmaceuticals for mental health, you should have therapy with it as well, right? And I learned that with my son. He's on medication, he's on a mood regulator, he's on ADHD medicine, which is really helping the chemical boosts in his body. But 80% of the work comes from his therapy. He has a therapist come to the house twice a week and a behaviorist to help him with the tools, understand the tools, and build the skills so that he doesn't need to be reliant only on the medication. Really quick story. My mom, very depressed, went up to almost 300 pounds on my frame when she was at her sickest because she was on many steroids. She was in bed 23 hours a day. And we all know that now pain can cause depression and not the other way around. And she was put on an antidepressant. She called me and she said, I took the pills and I'm not any happier. I said, Mom, that's not how it works. You don't just take a pill and it's a happy pill and poof, everything's better. You have to help your body help the medication work. It's no different with cannabis, with anything else that we take. So yes, can it lower cognition? Can it impact brain cells for memory if you overconsume, smoke non-regulated, non-quality, non-tested cannabis with very high amounts of THC? Absolutely.
So what does that mean? What is the high amount?
So-
Give us
Yes.
parameters.
THC. So THC is what people think of when they think of marijuana or cannabis. THC is what gets you high. It's the only thing that's psychoactive in the cannabis plant. There are other components of the cannabis plant, CBD, CBG, CBD, CBN, they're called cannabinoids. Cannabis is a spectrum of that. And then when you look at terpenes, right? If you're smoking flower, there are terpenes, which are the essential oils that are natural in the cannabis plant, but it's also in flowers and spices. It gives you that fragrance. That helps even out the psychoactivity and helps give you the better effects. I liken it to THC is the jet engine, and terpenes and the other cannabinoids are the wings to help actually steer you and give you the feeling, the effects that you're looking for. If anybody came into Blue Oak and said, I just want the highest amount of THC that I want to smoke, I'm like, no, you don't. Even if it, and we don't sell that because that's not regulated, that's not tested, right? Whether it's 85% THC and nothing else, that is going to cause a high, that is going to cause an overstimulation in your brain, and you're not going to feel well. And so the thing we do know about cannabis through medical research is you cannot die from cannabis, you cannot overdose from cannabis, and you cannot become addicted in the way that the term addiction is defined as it is with pharmaceuticals, illegal drugs, and alcohol. And why is that? It is because the cannabinoid receptors in the brainstem do not control the vital organs for heart and breathing and brain activity. So you can overconsume and you can feel dependent on it, absolutely, like you need it. But the addiction, where if you stop using it, your body will go through withdrawal, your organs will fail, and you could possibly die from it, does not happen from cannabis like it would with
A
alcohol.
follow-up question.
Yes.
Just-
It can impact cognition. As far as killing brain cells, I have not seen research on that. The research has not been studied. There isn't enough data to know what that looks like. But short-term memory absolutely is impacted. I don't know what that looks like for long-term memory. I don't know what that looks like with brain cells actually overcompensating for others that are impacted. That is why I'm so excited that we are getting rescheduled cannabis, and I am going to be part of clinical trials, and I'm going to make it my mission. I want to do that. I got that exposure in pharmaceuticals, and I want to learn how it impacts the brain, women's health, mental health, sleep. So I can't definitively say yes or no. There isn't enough data, but that is why it is not for children to just use recreationally. Absolutely can impair short-term memory when it is not used when you're a minor under the guidance of a doctor for a medical condition and used intentionally.
Yes, I was wondering, do you happen to have a list of medical professionals that are cannabis friendly?
This is a great question. So on the Cannabis Regulatory Commission site, the CRC site, which is the body of people that Governor Murphy put in place when New Jersey legalized cannabis, they give out licenses, they monitor licenses, they will look over the testing. They had a list of medical professionals on there because they, again, started 10 years before we were rec legal, right? So we've been about 15 years medically legal in this country, 5 years recreationally. And when it was medically legal, you had to have a medical card, which you needed a prescription from a doctor for, right? That's the only way that you could walk into a dispensary then. Now that we're recreational legal, anybody 21 or older with a government issued ID can walk in and buy, right? So the medical market is shrinking because what we've learned is the cannabis products are all the same. Now, there are certain medical conditions where you need certain levels of THC for cancer, for epilepsy. So there still are a handful of medical dispensaries in New Jersey or a hybrid dispensary that's both, where you do need a prescription to buy that. I looked at that list for myself because I wanted to test it. I always, push the envelope, and I called a few gynecologists lists on there a couple of years ago because I was like, I don't know that I just want to get on hormone replacement therapy for symptom management, not for estrogen. And it is not a replacement. Cannabis is not a replacement for hormone replacement therapy. It does nothing with the estrogen. It is for symptom management, right? Which is where a lot of people struggle with perimenopause and menopause. And I called 3 of those gynecologists. I got hung up by 2.
Okay.
They were like irate. And the other one said, "Oh, I will definitely let you know. I will definitely let you know. I'm the office manager. Let me talk to the doctor. Do you know how we got on that list?" I'm like, "I don't. It's on the state website. Here's the website. You can go on there." And they called me back and said, "The doctor has no idea. They don't want to be associated with cannabis. Can you please take me off the list?" I'm like, "But I can't. I don't know what this list is for." And I have medical patients that come in and ask me the same thing. So I went to my compliance officer at the state and I asked her, "Where'd this list come from?" She said, "I don't know." I still haven't got an answer from the state, and that was almost 2 years ago. So I am working on vetting that list from the state. But what I can tell you is there is a company called LeafWell that I work with. They are the largest online cannabis medical platform. They do telehealth visits throughout the country, and they have medical doctors and pharmacists that are cannabis medicine trained. And I had a consult with a pharmacist that was in Tennessee. That is the one that told me about specific cannabis CBD forward products for my night sweats for perimenopause, which is crazy because I'm in the industry. And so what I am still working on getting a list, but I would say you can start with talking with your current doctors and test where they're at, right? They may say, "No way." They may say, "I'm totally knowledgeable," or they may say, "I don't know, but I know this person." As we get rescheduled, more and more doctors are going to come forward. They're going to feel more comfortable. And what I've learned recently is a lot of doctors are for cannabis, but they can't publicly talk about it because it was a Schedule I drug because of their practice partners, also because of the Medicare contracts, the billing that they use. That is a federally funded program that they would get dinged for. Just like veterans that go to the VA hospitals that are federally funded that need cannabis the most can't get access to cannabis through the VA because it's federally funded. So this is where the political issues really hinder someone's ability. And it really upsets me because this is the medicine that vets truly need. And I've gone to veteran events and talked to them about it. And at the end of the day, sure, they could walk into my dispensary. They can't afford it.
Yeah.
Get free medicine
Yeah.
at the VA hospitals, at their shelters. And I can't help them. And as much as I would love to give them free medicine, it's very expensive for me to purchase. So obviously the system is broken. So I help where I can. I donate. I go to brands and I ask them to donate to those, that are most in need that can't afford it. And we do that. We do as much as we can. But it is definitely a broken system at this point.
You have a question back here?
Voice is hurting everybody.
So I'm a functional nutritionist, and in the world of functional, can you just so everybody hears here, sorry. I'm a functional nutritionist, and in the world of functional medicine, we look at what does a substance do to a particular function in the body, right? So we know THC changes methylation. We know THC can slow digestion. We know it can compromise immune system function, use of B vitamins. But the dose makes the poison. And unlike medicine, which is titrated at a specific dose, it's my concern, I don't have a concern about occasional use, but who's doing that? If you're a mom of multiple kids, if you're a mom of special needs kids, it's daily, right? This is how you're getting through life. So I'm not even sure what my question is. Maybe it's, do you see in your business people who use it moderately? Or is it, if we were looking at buying a bottle of aspirin, we wouldn't be like, "Oh, where can I get this?" Right? It's exciting that maybe there's a solution quote to our anxiety. So can you talk a little bit about what is moderation?
Sure.
And Who's doing moderation?
Yeah,
Yes.
is daily use once a day moderate? Would that not have those physical effects, the negative ones?
So I will say it all depends upon who's using and what you're using for, right? Again, this is very personal. So in moderation for what you need it for can look very different than what I use it for and how you consume, right? So I will say, great point, 100%. THC is not all created equally. Even though cannabis comes out, the cannabinoids, including THC, which is the psychoactive component, which is the one that says can do all the harm to the brain and to the body and interact. And if you are predisposed to psychosis, if you have anxiety or depression, you should not be smoking high quantities of THC. It will exacerbate it. There are definitely some risks. It's a medicine, right? We will learn more as we study it more. But legalized, tested cannabis is what, for me, I talk about. There is plenty of THC out there, home grow. Even in states where it's legalized, people are growing because they want you to get higher and, and come back and say, oh, you were disassociated, come back and buy my product. That is not what I'm talking about. Gas station weed, right? The hemp, that is the synthetics that are added to it to make you feel a certain way. So I'm talking about legalized cannabis that is only allowed to have a certain amount, a certain percentage of THC in it, right? So there we go as far as, having the titration of it in and of itself. I absolutely have customers that come in every day and use. Either they buy a pre-roll or they come in, not every day, but they come in and they buy edibles and they use edibles or they have a vape. I am a moderate user. You also don't have to use cannabis to get high. 99% of the times I use cannabis, I don't really feel any high, but I feel the effects of the cannabinoids. My anxiety is lower. My pain, I am, again, an orthopedic mess. I do have a torn hip labrum that's been bothering me. I feel better. My brain fog is lifted. I have clarity. I have more energy. My inhibitions to like working out or those barriers, I work out more. Like I'm able to do more things. I'm out of my head. So again, it's all about intentional, knowing what you would like to treat for, finding the right product and the right dosing and adjusting based on what your body is telling you, right? You don't have to do it alone. It is scary. You can feel isolated. You can talk with, licensed dispensary workers. There are plenty of people in New Jersey in the healthcare system. And again, it doesn't have to be a doctor. It could be a therapist. It could be a pharmacist. It could be a physical therapist. It could be anybody, right? A nutritionist. You can talk about it because these conversations are happening more and more and more. And this is why I love talking to people that are at the other end of the spectrum of their cannabis knowledge or their fear of cannabis, because there's so much more we can do together to learn and to bring people more into the destigmatization, if you will, of cannabis.
Okay, we have a question online, if you could read that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Once cannabis is reclassified as a Schedule III drug, hopefully, do you expect medical community to drop their stigma about it and start treating or pushing for more studies? And what are your thoughts, opinion of using peptides for children with ASD diagnosis? Thank you for your time. You're welcome. Great question. Absolutely, 100%. I do think once we are Schedule III, which it's in process and it will happen, we will see more clinical trials and more research that doctors will feel much more comfortable saying, absolutely, cannabis in this dosage, in this form, for these conditions, with what your body is doing, will help you. 100%. I am convinced of it because we already have research on that. Some doctors will not take that in this country because who funded it, how it was funded, it wasn't in this country. So 100%. I definitely do think the pharmaceutical industry is already here in cannabis.
Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, but she didn't answer the part
Yes.
of peptides.
Yes. So pharmaceuticals is already part of the cannabis industry. They've been watching and they would be dumb not to come in because it's a natural form of medicine. And if they can, unfortunately with the small independent operators and growers, it's very expensive. We need power. We need reach with the government, with advocacy. We need researchers. We need money for product launches. And that comes from bigger business, right? Hopefully the integrity of the cannabis industry will not implode when that happens. Similarly, what happened with pharmaceuticals. We all know that on the business side, there's some questionable things that happen with prescribing, right? And overprescribing. I can't speak about peptides. I'm actually just started learning about peptides for me. They are a supplement. They are just becoming, I don't want protein. They're more, the trend is coming more and more. There's a company, RHO, that I started looking into that does peptides either in a capsule form, I don't know if it's powder, but injectable form. The data isn't there yet, in my opinion, for me, to say whether I'm going to use it. But I have heard it can help with cell regeneration, with regulation. Similarly to psychedelics, we just passed a bill for medical use of psychedelics in this country, in medical trials. I don't think it will be more like a recreational form. I think it's going to be more in a clinic form with doctors, like ketamine trials that are happening. Mount Sinai does them, highly controlled, very carefully done. But the more natural components. I mean, when I was in pharmaceuticals, I worked a little bit on biotechnology and how the body can heal itself with cell regeneration. That was 20 plus years ago. I'm sure a lot has come from that. So yes, more to come on that, but it is another area. But I really do think cannabis is paving the way for the more natural ways to heal. And then, I think it's just going to propel things like peptides, and psychedelics and ketamine faster because we'll have removed the red tape. We'll have removed the stigma. Naturally, when people who are in a position of power or authority, doctors that are licensed, the more that they come forward and say, this is something that I stand behind, the more quickly stigma will reduce. But I tell people that are feeling that way is you can also do it within your own communities and conversations that you have. But I also want to tell people they don't have to be public about their cannabis use. It's a very private thing. They don't have to be as public as I am. But I also don't want them to feel shame. They're not doing anything wrong. At the end of the day, cannabis is legalized medicine. It is fully legal in the state of New Jersey. It's legal in most states medically and a lot of states recreationally. And so you're not doing anything wrong. So, to reduce the shame or the judgment that you feel walking into a dispensary, I want, and again, it's all about being gentler on yourself, right? Because you're not doing anything wrong. I highly recommend, though, only buying from licensed dispensaries. Do not buy online from the.
No, if it's licensed or not.
So the state of New Jersey has all the licensed dispensaries listed. Every state, whether it's the OCM in New York or the CCM in Massachusetts or the CRC in New Jersey. If you go on New Jersey Cannabis, Commission, it will tell you all the licensed dispensaries in every single town by county.
And it's also, you have a plaque or a
Yes, a plaque.
notice
Yes.
in the.
There are some smoke shops though, and some hemp shops that disguise themselves, not so much in New Jersey, but in New York, especially in the city, where you might question it. You can always ask to see the license. I have a license that has to be on display, that has an expiration every year that I have to get renewed. Also, if you walk into a dispensary and you see 50 milligram cannabis drinks, you know that that's not legal. We don't have drinks on our shelves that have 50 milligrams, right? In New Jersey, it's 10 milligrams of THC in edible form, gummy, tinctures, drinks, baked goods. That is the max we're allowed to sell.
So my question is about children with ADHD. Is it used for that? Is it something you would give instead of Ritalin to your child?
So there is definitely, there's been treatment doctors that have treated for any need on the spectrum, right? And we know severe ADHD, once Asperger's was disbanded as the term, and it's the autism spectrum now. My son is technically on the spectrum because he has severe ADHD and mood dysregulation. So I did look into cannabis, and yes, it is treated. THC, low doses of THC, high doses of other cannabinoids, CBD, is treated for severe cases of minors with ADHD. There is also the other side, and it's a little tricky now because of the hemp ban that Trump put out, which I'm happy about, but I don't think that it should have been a blanket ban for CBD because there are a lot of, and CBD is a cannabinoid, it is cannabis that is non-psychoactive. You will not get any psychoactivity from CBD. What it does is it helps with anxiety, it can help with inflammation, it can help with regulation, emotional regulation. I was taking a CBD tincture only during the day to help me with my anxiety and to help me with mental clarity. There was a brand that I carried from Massachusetts that I looked into the testing on. The founder is on the board of Harvard Medical School. She is very transparent about how she tests her hemp, so to speak, because it is not regulated in this country, not by the Department of Agriculture, not by the FDA. So you see all the rage of CBD, and I caution people to not buy it online. There's all these commercials now about perimenopause and hims and hers, and that is not regulated. And so it's not tested. They may say they test it independently, but there's no government body that regulates that. So you don't really know what's in it, right? If there are additives and it's pure, CBD. So I caution anybody from taking that. But I have seen I've moms in my community that have given CBD, the Healing Rose, which is the brand I carried, with some guidance from their healthcare team, CBD for children with ADHD and anxiety, and it has absolutely helped them. But again, it's a conversation with your healthcare team. It is, there is still good CBD out there. It's come, I think, November. Anybody that has any sort of cannabis, even CBD, has to get a license under a state, which is great, which means they're going to be testing.
For the seller.
The seller. You can only buy it. So I'm excited because I'll be able to now have CBD only products in my store under my state license that's tested.
But you said that Trump made a ban on hemp.
He did.
And the tincture that you're using is made from hemp.
So he made a ban on selling it without a license because it's not regulated. So what he wants to do is, as he should, because hemp is cannabis, CBD is cannabis. The state should be managing that under the license. It shouldn't just be THC. Cannabis is a spectrum, right? It is a medicine, even if it's not psychoactive, right? It's changing your body. So why is it that it's the wild, wild west here? And it was because of a loophole in the 2018 Farm Bill for farmers. Farmers grow hemp for textiles. It's very strong. They started seeing that it had medicinal benefits, and so it was a loophole. So all these CBD companies rode on that coattail. He knew it was just a matter of time before agencies say, wait a second, because it exploded into now selling gas station weed, adding that in. And so there's a lot of conversation around regulation. So you can buy it, but it will have to be from a licensed dispensary.
Yeah. All right. We have one.
Sorry, I have to go. Quick question, if I may. Totally logistical. Single mom. Can I go shopping at your store, which I've been to once and I love, with my kids with me?
Absolutely can.
Okay, cool.
So really quickly on that, anyone 21 or older on their own is not allowed in my store. If parents are allowed to have minor children, 17 and under, with you, and they have to be in your care. But again, it's silly for me because nobody can get to any of the product, even you could.
Younger.
Anyone under 21 by themselves, cannot come in my store by themselves. Any parent or a legal guardian of a child 17 and under, a minor, can come in. 18, 19, 20-year-olds are not allowed in, even with an adult, because they're not considered minors, they're adults, but they're under 21, right? So, but you cannot, even if you came into my store, you will never see live product until you actually buy it. And it's in a container. And so it's not like a liquor store where the kids can touch, bottles and see it and all of that. So I think those restrictions will be eased as well. That does not help the stigma, right, about that. But it's like when you walk into a pharmacy, you see over the counters that you can touch. You don't necessarily get to see the Percocets or, the other prescription medications.
So we're way over, but we have two more questions, one online and one in person. So do you want to speak?
Quickly,
Yes.
If a healthcare provider wants to prescribe, what's the process?
So they just write a prescription, and then the individual who they write it for has to get a medical card, And there's Agent Leafwell, which I'm going to send Alma all of my resources. Leafwell can get you a free medical card in New Jersey. You don't need a medical card though to get access to medical grade cannabis because it's all the same. So if you had a prescription, you could walk into any dispensary and say, this is, you don't have to give the prescription over. You can say, this is what my doctor is saying that I should use cannabis for. Can you help me find a product that has that component? So you don't need to be defined by prescription anymore. You do not need a medical card. Again, in extreme cases, cancer, Parkinson's, even Alzheimer's now with there's a lot of studies actually that have come out recently where in moderation, it is actually improving cognitive volume in the brain because of intentional uses of THC. So you don't need a prescription, but if that is more comfortable for you to come in and start the conversation about what you need, because in Blue Oak, when you walk in, my staff know, they do not say, okay, here's a product, here's a great joint, why don't you buy this? We don't lead with products because you miss the opportunity to help someone understand how cannabis can benefit them. It is not, the products is the absolute last thing. And we shouldn't even talk about products when we don't even know what you need, right? And oftentimes what you need is different than what you want. I get in so much, oh, my friend told me I should try this. It's a great conversation starter, but we say, why? Talk to me about, what this looks like. How do you like to consume? When do you want to consume? It's a conversation that you can have at the sales counter, or I do private consultations as well for people that need a little bit more time. And in Blue Oak, when you come in, you don't order from a kiosk. There are many dispensaries you walk in, it's like self-service.
Yeah.
We have kiosks there for menus, and you can order online if you know what you want and do in-store pickup or curbside if you want more discretion or fast. Totally fine. So many people want to come in and just have that conversation.
And if you have the prescription, does the insurance company pay for it?
So that's great question. Leafwell, come back to Leafwell, which I just love so much because they have a membership for cannabis telehealth. They offer discounts in cannabis dispensaries for partners, and I'm one of them. I am so grateful to them because they're starting to get cannabis covered in certain conditions with large health insurance companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield and Aetna and Cigna. And people say to me, how is that possible? It's federally legal. I'm like, because health insurance are private institutions, they can cover whatever they want. The prescription managers, the pharmacy managers can cover whatever they want. And it is a medicine. So we are starting to see more and more. There are 4 towns in New Jersey that have municipality coverage for cannabis use.
Is Claire one of them?
Not yet. I've been talking to Jenny Mundell, the mayor of Bloomfield, to talk about how we can get municipal workers cannabis covered for them, teachers, first responders, to use as a medicine, and have that covered, either cost sharing or covered fully. So there are 4 towns, Orange, Teaneck, and there's 2 down south. And I would love to have more municipalities cover that because it is expensive. I've had people come to me and say, Ambien works for me, I don't like it, or Xanax, I don't like it, but it's free, or it's $5 a month. Costs me $30 a month for, sleep edibles. Like, I understand that it is expensive, and the cost will come down as the cost of components of making cannabis and cultivating cannabis comes down. Price compression will happen, and I will follow my prices lowering once I can buy it for cheaper. We're gonna get there, but it definitely upsets me that cost is a barrier for people getting the
And there
medicine.
are organizations, there's an organization called Sativa Cross, and if you've been to the Disability Pride Parade in Montclair, we always have a speaker talking about that, who has a disability, a physical disability and lots of pain, and trying to get this covered because it's too expensive. It's very helpful, but it's too expensive to buy. So I just want, someone wrote in a cautionary tale, so I do want to read this. For people on the spectrum with processing speed issues, weed is not good. It negatively impacts processing, which causes a lot of other mental issues like anxiety and trauma to snowball. My child's life was pretty much destroyed by self-medicating with weed and alcohol, but mostly weed. My child is sober now, but it was a year and a half of spiral suicide threats, extreme depression, and self-loathing. So I have heard of a number of parents talking about their kids who were excessive pot smokers, and they were later diagnosed with schizophrenia. So I think that it goes back to what you were saying. If you have a predisposition to a but a lot of people don't know that they are predisposed to psychiatric, psychosis.
And I will just say, again, when you mix it with other things like alcohol or pharmaceuticals or illegal drugs, that's when everything what I just said about cannabis goes out the window, right? I'm talking about intentional, informed usage with licensed, regulated cannabis products. So kids, for the most part, that are smoking weed are not getting it from licensed dispensers. They're getting it on the street. We have no idea what it's laced with.
Yep.
Heroin, fentanyl, cut-in synthetics. It's the truth. And so for me, absolutely, if you have a predisposition to any mental health issues, smoking high amounts of THC can absolutely exacerbate that. It actually does increase brain activity, 100%. So there are risks with side effects. But that's why it's important to have conversations and not self-medicate on your own without having those conversations with licensed professionals across the board, because there's other ways to consume. It's not just smoking anymore. You won't necessarily exacerbate your mental health issues by taking a low dose edible, because when you add in other cannabinoids and terpenes, the psychoactivity of the THC, which also has medicinal properties, anti-analgesic, anti-inflammatory, that remains. It actually gets boosted with other cannabinoids. It's called the entourage effect in your body. But the psychoactivity gets cut down because of the other cannabinoids. So for me, when I do edibles, I do hybrid edibles, meaning it's a ratioed. It's got CBD or CBG or CBN in it with lower dose of THC.
And what's that ratio that's supposed to be 1 to 3?
So it can be, some people like 1 to 1. So 1 part of, 5 parts of THC to 5 parts of CBD, or you could do 20 to 1. I'm on a 20 to 1 right now for the inflammation in my knee and my hip. It's 20 milligrams of CBD, 1 milligram of THC. I have 0 psychoactivity impact because it's not even really the 1 milligram of THC. I'm using that for the extra inflammatory help with that. So we have multiple variations. We also have straight THC edibles, 5 milligram, 10 milligram, and not to geek out over it, but it's also how the oil is processed when it's extracted from the cannabis plant. So you've got 3 levels: distillate, resin, and rosin. For you, all it means is distillate is the easiest way to extract it. It's a little bit more touched and processed, not in a bad way, but you can lose some of the natural benefits of the plant, right? And rosin is the best way because it's hand extracted, it's cold washed, it's much more expensive to produce, but you preserve all the molecules, all the good components of the cannabis plant in that. And so, it all, and then resin's a combination of the two. Not that distillate is bad, it's just more touch. It's similar to like organic to non-organic food. It's all quality tested and safe, again, in the confines of how you use it. And that's where I talk a lot about children. A lot of children use it to escape or to get high. And I say, you don't have to use cannabis to get high. I don't use it. Sometimes I'll get high with my friends, but I use it therapeutically and medicinally. So I am walking, example of you don't have to use it to be high. And you can have fun with it, but I tell people, caution, learn how it works with your body first. Learn how it feels and then go up from there. Once it's in your body, you're in it. If you take an edible and you take too much, 4 to 6 hours at a minimum. If you overconsume, absolutely, you can, feel paranoid, you can get sick, GI issues, vomit. If it's cannabis alone, that's tested and regulated, that's the worst of it. You will feel better after a day or two. You will. And I tell people, even with alcohol, and this is the only parallel I make, because alcohol is not a medicine, it is a drug. When you sit down and have a glass of wine, do you chug the whole bottle? No. You're not drinking a glass of wine to get drunk. Sometimes you want to feel good, you want to relax, take the edge off, you want it to enhance the flavor of the food that you're having it with. I say the same thing as how many of us have overdrink We've overconsumed alcohol in our life and we've gotten sick, we've whatever. Did we stop drinking alcohol? No. Did we become addicted? No. I say this carefully because I know addiction is real. And I do know that people do pair and they lower their inhibitions. And yes, it can, THC in its form with high dose of CBD can make you can make you a lot more relaxed or a little bit more relaxed depending on your system. So yes, your inhibitions are lower. There's other cannabinoids like CBG can give you a boost. It can make you feel like lifted and higher. Some children will then feel more inclined to try alcohol or other drugs. So yes, when they say it's a gateway drug, it can, when you use irresponsibly, underage and you're not guided with regulated product. And that's where the dangers of cannabis come in. And I never talk about cannabis is 100% safe.
Yeah.
It's just not. You have to know what it is, what you're using it for, and how much you're using.
All right. Well, this has been hugely helpful. We've kept you an extra half hour. We
worries.
so appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was late again.
It's okay. And we are going to get information from you that will be disseminated to everyone in the group. And this video has been recorded and we will send it out today. But thank you so much.
You're
And we'll
welcome.
have ways to contact you in the info that you send. But thank you so much for
You're
coming. This
welcome.
was very
You're
helpful.
welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me. And I'm excited to talk more. Come back maybe when I'm doing clinical trials,
Great.
right?
Great.
So
Great. Thank you so much.
yes, and I have my card and I have some information, even if it's just for a conversation, not even to purchase from for me, if I can help educate and people can decide where they want to buy from or consume, and it is not Blue Hook, that is perfectly okay with me.
Thank you. All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for coming
Thank you.
online.